on a bouncy ball? Is this guy sitting on a bouncy ball? I saw him sitting on one.
Yeah, I am.
Too much. Having too much fun already. This is going to be a good one. I can tell.
Hey, it's my guy Sushi, man. Sushi, good to see you.
Sushi, good to see you.
What's up, Josh?
Josh, good to see you. Hey, guys, it's another week of The Good Life. We're here. Thoughtful conversations around health, wealth, love, happiness, all the things that we need to get to that good life. Could be as sipping soup and bouncing on a bouncy ball for this one. It's a special episode.
Having fun.
Living life, having fun.
Hey, man. My Africa OG used to always say, "Now, who go happy you? You go happy yourself, man." I don't know what you guys get from that, but
have fun. I'm right up there.
Gotta do it.
Right up that alley. We got to make some T-shirts of all these things, man. Like these are quality sayings.
Yeah.
So, either way, welcome everybody. Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Hit the thumbs up, right? Subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you share this with somebody because we're trying to drop some major nuggets on you, some great information. Again, help you pursue a better life, right? Health, wealth, love, happiness. Let's get to that place of fulfillment. Tonight, we're going to have a conversation because if you had joined us already in our Instagram live that we do the pregame right before you had joined us, we were talking about money, building wealth. Kabi had set it up perfectly for us, so I'm going to allow him to kind of set it back up for the start of this conversation and kind of what was on his mind. But this is going to be a good one, guys. So share with a friend. But let's jump in. Kabi, talk to me, man. What's on your mind around money?
Share with somebody you care about. This is going to be a really good one. I can feel it in my bones, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, to set it up, a lot of us, a lot of people I know, a lot of friends I have, and I'm sure a lot of colleagues, people you work with, and maybe even yourself, God forbid, right? Are in a position where you've secured, and I think I set it up and Chris clarified it in such a way that was so key that I'll use a little bit of his language here in short-term, medium, and long-term because it kind of classifies everything. You've got your short-term in order. You're good. Let's get aggressive. Let's say for about a year. Like you're set if anything happens, right? And you've got some long-term stuff, maybe through work, maybe through your own structures that you've set up. What do we do about the medium? How do you start to get large chunks of money that you can do stuff with? How do you start to make medium type of investments that are going to get you more than the average and are going to get it a little quicker than like 10 years, right? So that's what we're talking about here. I think it'd be kind of cool to really go through, and come up with some cool stuff that we've heard, right? Or some ways to think about it, or however you guys want to approach it. I know there are a couple of things that I personally haven't done, but I've heard other real estate investors talk about that is really I didn't think about that, like 3, 4, 5 years ago that I think would be really cool to touch on. And maybe touch on, Chris, I like where you're going with the equities piece, because when you put it that way, it becomes clear to me that like, oh yeah, that's kind of like, that's the bucket that the things I've been thinking about fit into, to put it that way. So I think it'd be really helpful for a lot of folks. And, toss it over to whoever wants to take it next and drop some knowledge.
Oh, yeah, Stu, I just want to hear your perspective on it, man. Like as somebody that kind of just were talking a bit offline in the process of really diving into that midterm investment, that bigger investment that is going to now get you to that next level. Yeah, that's right. And the heart's
nerve-wracking, dude. It's nerve-wracking.
Tell me your thoughts and feelings behind it. Like, why is it nerve-wracking, and kind of what are your thoughts around it?
Well, it's nerve-wracking because it's my first 5-digit investment in anything at one time. And for me, I talked a little bit about it. It's an investment in a smaller startup company that puts together drop shipping company sets it up in your name, etc. And that's a big thing. It's a tried and proven concept with Amazon, and now it's shifting apparently. And I'm speaking really just through a lot of their experience and their specialized knowledge to touch on that point you made earlier about how important it is to have that specialized knowledge. For me, I'm placing my trust in an individual that has that specialized knowledge. And I think that's a nice option that a lot of people kind of forget to think about. You don't have to necessarily know everything. You can't know everything. But anyways, little digression there. I've always thought super, super, super long term financially. We're talking 401k vehicles, Roth IRA, save more, just, acquire cash, acquire real estate, not from a sense of buying and selling real estate, but from a sense of buying, renting it out, allowing the rent to naturally increase over time until it becomes more and more profitable while you still have your mortgage payment. Then bam, you talk 30 years down the line, I guess I've got about 26 left. Dang it. You start getting just the straight income. So for me, that begins to turn into a super conservative retirement vehicle, assuming Virginia Beach stays above water in 30 years.
That's right.
Yeah, it's in one of the better places. I did think about that a little bit, and it's third story. If they can figure the rest of it out, I'm still dry. But when it comes to the medium, this is my first one. It is very nerve-wracking because it's money that I used to have a very different mindset when it came to money. Plan everything in accordance with retirement. Like, just plan your whole life around retirement. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait a second. I don't enjoy my time in this job. I'm not in control of my time. I'm not in control of my money. I don't have my money working for me at anywhere near the same rate that I am actively putting time into my money. Something's got to change there because time is my number one priority. So now this whole idea of taking some of these bigger risks when it comes to this investment in a company that I've done a lot of research into, and I've specifically gotten to know multiple people in the company and one person that's actually been a client, I now have enough trust to put in that 5-digit investment. And I think everybody out there that's beginning to think about this, that's done that conservative type retirement planning like we talked about, that's definitely most of my network. I think you mentioned, one of you guys mentioned how it's 80-90% of Americans. I guess Chris, I think I was kind of both of you guys. Mm-hmm. That's what's normal. Yeah,
because it's real. I'm glad you wrapped it up with that. That's what's normal. That's normal. That is the normal conversation. That is the way it's been done over the past 30, 40 years, 50 years even, right? That is the norm. We're living through some different times. We just talked about it a bit on our pregame. That we're living through a time where the U.S. dollar might be going to nothing, or at least devaluing significantly. The U.S. in general as a global powerhouse potentially coming to an end, right? It's almost a foregone conclusion that China is the rising superpower of the world, right? All of these things conspiring at once are some real things to pay attention to when it comes to the money side of things. And we can't keep old strategies to get us to new destinations, right? Can't keep old strategies to get you to new destinations, and we're headed to new places. So that strategy of, save for the long haul, put the money into a stable retirement plan, invest and put all the money into the house, and right, that becomes your form of wealth or your form of retirement. That's probably not going to play out for us over the next 30 years that way. It just may not. Now, we talked about, and I think that's where we'll go a little bit deeper tonight, is just into some of the asset classes, and right, they all have its place. Real estate has its place, absolutely. But we have to break away from the norm. That's the conversation. In order to get to the good life, tie it all in, right? In order to get to the good life, you got to do things differently. And so that becomes a lot of the mode of kind of how I think about money and how I help people think about money, is really just saying, okay, how do we break this down to its simplest form and get you to where you want to be, but understand that the vehicles now might be changing a bit. So some of the basics, before I kind of like dive into the midterm, could be kind of set it up perfectly. You got your short term. So that's your emergency fund. That's your 6 months, really good, a year worth of savings. It's okay to sit it in the bank. By the way, I want to have that conversation with everyone because sometimes people start to believe that like you don't need any money in the bank. It's like, no, just once you get to that level of like where you're comfortable, 6 months, 12 months worth of savings, then you don't have to put another dime there. You have to put another dime in the bank after that point. But you got to have some cushion, right? If anything, lose a job, all types of stuff could happen. People get sick, got to fly out of the country, whatever, right? Like, you need something. Then you got your long term. You got your 401k, your IRA, your passive investments. That's what they are. They're passive investments. You really have no control over the stock market. You really have no control over the numbers of that company. They're passive investments. However, we've been conditioned and talk about it in this country that if you just believe in the U.S. government, right? If you just believe in the U.S. companies and the U.S. economy, right? You just put your money in this stock market and you're going to have money down the line. Unfortunately, the downside of that also is like, if we're declining as a society, as a country, as a powerhouse, that actually may not be true. But either way, you probably got some money set aside, you're putting it away in your 401k, IRA, doing all that stuff. The question could be asked is like, well, then how do we get to that next level? That's where we focus on what I call midterm investments. Things that are 3 to 8 years worth of investing, 3 to 10 years. It's not super quick, but it's not as long as a long-term investment. And that's where we need specialized knowledge, because this is where people get confused, right? They get confused. Like, well, what do I do? What do I do with this? How do I go? Like, where do I put this money? And all of it really comes down to the way I break it down for people is your specialized knowledge in the asset classes and where actually you can grow money, right? And so, before I kind of dive into any of that stuff, Kobi or Stu, do you have anything that I just, did you want to add on to anything that I just said? I kind of broke it down, basically what we're already talking about, right?
I think you're spot on.
Cool.
And I would like to turn over the rest of my time to Stu.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you handing me the proverbial baton. So I think one thing that is kind of interesting, like when we talk about the good life in terms of finances, I think a lot of people have different definitions of what the good life might look like. Mm-hmm. There's some people that really want to be like the Jeff Bezos kind of rich. Mm-hmm. There are some people that are more content just being like upper middle class and having like, a lot of conservative type of investments in vehicles. So really all of these options are okay. It's just up to you and your level of risk tolerance and your level of ambition, and your good life may look very different than the three of ours. And the three of ours, I promise, look very different already. Like, we all have very different viewpoints. And I think the same thing comes to money. Perhaps we're all equally ambitious when it comes to the finances side, when it comes to good life. But I think, for our audience out there, like, just remember, like, this is all up to you. We're just here to give you options so you can paint your own picture of the good life and how it relates to finances. That's it. And that's a great way to put it, too, because we talked about on the pregame, like, what's the end goal? Like, kind of having that long-term mindset. Like, well, what is it that you're trying to get to? Right? What is the thing that you're trying to get to? I told you guys, 20,000, 30,000 acres somewhere in the middle of the country, because I want, like, that's freedom for me. That's freedom. That's sustainable living, grow my own food, have, a house of the way that I want to, have land the way that I want to, my own water supply, underground bunker for when the robots come to kill us, right? Right? All of those things. And the reason why we talk about the middle of the country is because global warming is a real thing. It's a real thing. And my theory, I don't know if this can be supported anywhere else, but like coastal, anything that's sitting next to water is just vulnerable. Just very vulnerable long term. Like, especially if we don't fix this.
Any water?
I feel like any water. I feel like and specifically because we live in the US, that's what we know. But like, I venture to say, like, you go to other countries that are like
a bay, like a bay.
Yeah, like a bay. More of an ocean.
Like,
right?
okay. All right.
Like,
Because I'm, like river, we talking like, because there's some I want to be middle of the country, but I want to be middle of the country with the river running through my property.
Absolutely.
That would be ideal.
Absolutely. I'm talking big bodies, oceans, Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, Indian Ocean, right? Like ocean water.
Yeah.
Because
like Chesapeake.
So no Hawaii for you,
right
huh?
up with it.
I don't know. I don't know that Hawaii will be a state after 30 years. It's just gonna go underwater. It's just gonna disappear
on the top of like the volcano, just like hanging out.
That's it.
Yeah.
You should make it disappear, right?
To get more specific on this, because I think you're making a great point when it comes to like the ocean and things that are very tied to that. Focus on sea level, folks. It's all about sea level. Down here in Florida, we are having some difficulties with that. And if you don't believe currently that it's a problem, you can look at Katrina, and it sure as hell was not designed to flood like a bowl every single hurricane season. Right. So it's out there, it's happening, it's real. It's just, if you're up on a cliff somewhere and your elevation of sea level is 100 feet, but you're right next to the ocean, you're probably in decent shape. But it's like the coastal beach type places that are really, really low in sea level that should be thinking about real estate long term.
Yeah, they're vulnerable, man, and it's and it like it's just tough, right? Like again, when we talk about this good life, we're talking about generations. We're talking about how do we get to that place where, and again, like you said, Stu, everyone's idea of what their good life is a bit different. But at the end of the day, like you're still playing this for the long haul. If you want to live a good life, we're talking about a life, like a lifetime, right? Like whether you get there at 50, whether you get there at 42 or 30 or 66, it's your life that you're trying to live out. So you got to be smart. You got to play these things long term. And that's my investing strategy. That's what I would kind of encourage most of our listeners and people that are watching to pay attention to as their investing strategy is just what's the safest stuff long term. What's the things that we know will be there. And unfortunately, what we've known in the past may not be the way it is in the future. And so we have to start planning for those types of things. And that's where we get into these kind of midterm investments, as I call them, which are the different asset classes. So for anyone, and I've broken this down for people a bunch to make it as simple as I can, but those midterm asset classes, when you hear wealthy people, we're having a wealth conversation tonight, so I'm going to reference wealthy people, but just from a financial place, right? Again, we understand it's all the things, but just from a financial place. Five basic asset classes. Got cash, which not much now, right? Like we got to figure that one out. Cash. There's equities. There's the lending of money. There's real estate, and there's commodities. Those are your 5 basic asset classes. Cash, equities, lending or loaning of money, real estate, commodities. Okay? When you hear wealthy people say diversify your assets, that's actually what they mean. Maybe you got some real estate, you might want to move it into equities, and then you take some equities and you move it over to commodities, and then you loan some out, and then you have money spread out across all of those things. What it doesn't mean, coming off on the back of a conversation that we had, I think last week, of the 101, was last week 101, 201, was that last week that we talked about?
I think so.
Yeah. So coming on the back
really
of that,
blur together. Yeah.
They really do, guys. We've been doing this a bunch. We're on episode 22. It's like 6 months worth of doing this. I'm proud of you.
Feeling 22 today? Taylor Swift? No? I had to. I'm just here for the dad jokes. That's it. Handing the baton over to you, Chris.
Got it back. Thank you, sir. I forget. See, look at that. Those dad jokes throw me off, man. It throws the train of thought off.
The 5 different asset classes.
Right. So what I was going off of, thank you for that. The 101 that we came with last week or the week before, whenever that was, a lot of times you'll hear people that work say, yeah, I'm diversified, like inside of their 401k, like inside of their IRA. They're like, yeah, I'm diversified. It's not what wealthy people are talking about. You're actually sitting in one vehicle. So technically all your eggs are in one basket. Yeah, you might have mid-cap stocks versus large cap versus some of it in the fixed account, but that's not diversification to what wealthy people talk about when you're at this level. It's across asset classes that you have to diversify, right? So we're talking about cash a little bit. The US dollar is going to be garbage after some time, right? Just inflation, the Fed, right? I don't know that we even have time to get into these types of conversations. But the people running the country and running the money in this country actually don't fully always know what they're doing. Just know that, okay? So cash used to be a place that people could just store money, because for the past few hundred years, right, like the US was the currency, the reserve currency of the world, still is the reserve currency of the world. So if you just saved money in cash, it's cool, right? Like, you know that it'll have a value. That's changing. That's changing. So it doesn't always make sense to have a ton of money in cash. So what we're talking about now is how are we building on top of it? Equities is my favorite place to talk about. Equities is technically ownership of a business. Now, some people think of equities like in the stock market, right? That's a form of equities because you're investing in a business. But anytime you're investing in the stock market, it's a passive form of equity. It's passive investing because you have no control over the stock market. You have no control over the company that you're investing in, right? Unless you're an active investor where you're making hundreds of millions of dollars as an investment into that company. So you get a seat on the board, so you can, right? Like, that's how things start to work on that level. That becomes active investing, okay? But everything else, IRAs, 401ks, stock market investing, all that stuff, passive investing. You really don't have control over it. The equities that I like to talk about are startup funding or ownership of actual businesses. And like I said before, guys, this is where specialized knowledge comes into play. Might have said this on the pregame, but what starts to happen when your short term is good because you know to save money and you know to get out of debt and you know to invest in your company sponsored plan or something for the long haul, what happens is we've taken our brains on kind of put them on automatic when it comes to money, right? Like, got it. I understand how this works. Do this, and now it's automatic. Now when we get to some form of wealth building in the midterm funds, we actually have to reactivate that brain. And we got to start learning some new things. You got to start learning these asset classes. You got to understand how to read some different financial sheets. You got to understand some different nuances in business. I was saying, when you're starting to go down this equity side and you're investing in startups, remember, I think it was like a $10,000 or it was a $25,000 investment in Uber when it hit its seed round. I think when it hit IPO, it turned into like 10 million or something like that, right? Like a 25 grand investment in a business that they believed in, that people believed in. When it finally went IPO 6, 7 years, 8 years later, whenever that was, turned into a $10 million investment. Where else can you get that? Yeah. Really, you can't get that anywhere. But how would you have known to invest in Uber? You'd had to have some specialized knowledge. You'd had to have them come to you. You'd have to understand technology. You have to understand what they were doing with an app, because this is before it got big. So that becomes specialized knowledge that you need to gather at the time so that you can start investing in these things. That's how you take it to the next level. That's how you 100x your money without cryptocurrency or some penny stock or something. You 100x your money because you have knowledge. Then you make like Stu said, a healthy 5 or 6 figure investment. You're not going to nickel and dime this thing if you want to build wealth, right? You got the short term taken care of. You got the long term taken care of. You're not making $100, $200, $300 investments anymore. That's not the game. The game is healthy 5 figures to 6 figures. If you can drop $75,000 on a business that you believe in, not just the business model, but the person running the business, that investment, when they sell to Amazon or they sell to Walmart or they sell to some other company that comes and buys them, you get paid. You get paid handsomely because you made a handsome investment in there. That's how you get to that next level. That's just equities. I believe in the equity side. I think that that's one of the best ways for people to go, because that's knowledge that we all have some type of knowledge of an industry, right? And I threw some of these things out there. Like if you're a teacher, right? Like you might be on a teacher salary right now. Maybe you got your short term taken care of. Maybe you got your long term. You want to get out of teaching. Like you would know what to look for in a business that's disrupting the education space. You would know what to look for. we all have a specialized knowledge or a bit of knowledge in something. We just don't go deep enough into it to actually make it an investment. Does that make sense?
Oh, yep. Yep.
So,
and to add to that a little bit, oh, wait, before you keep going with the asset classes, I think in a way, you have to kind of look at, or we have to start looking at, or come back to looking at, however you want to put it, our education as one of those equities in a way, right? You are a business, you're investing in yourself. If you're dropping $100,000, it should be preparing you to get something pretty massive back in return. And so I think it's really important that the thing is, what's really interesting is that it kind of comes after your short term is built a little bit, but we right now are making decisions on it pretty early, right? 18, 17, 19. But after that, I think too, I still look at those type of investments, those type of moves as short term, as medium term investments, right? Can I put in 10, 15,000 to upgrade my skill in such a way that I can get 10x back, right? And I can keep using it over and over and over again. So I think education, and then once you've gained expertise and experience, and you've worked in the space for a period of time, I think looking at again, investing in yourself as an entrepreneur, right? Mm-hmm. So as whether it's something as simple as consulting or coaching or teaching, as you mentioned with teachers. But I think a lot of us don't recognize that the thing that we've been trained to do at our job, we can actually go out into the free market space and monetize that sometimes at even a much higher level. So I want to add that before we keep rolling, because I think there's some good stuff coming up that a lot of people, our peers especially, can gather.
Absolutely. Yeah. Dude, I love that contribution. The education, even things like, whether there's two benefits to investing in your own education at like a serious level. And I'll take life coaching as an example. You can go out there and get like a $60 life coaching certification, which is a piece of paper that simply says, I did this on my class. Or you can spend 3, 4, 5 digit amounts in order to become the best coach possible. So and each one has its pros and cons. You may not have the capital. Maybe you really got to vet who you're dealing with at that level. But the different types of education that you invest yourself in, like Kobi's saying, they make you stronger. You never lose that. Investing in yourself, you really never lose it. We hear that expression a lot, but you really never lose that knowledge. You never lose the clout of, if we were to go super traditional, a PhD behind you. Or if we were to go a little bit differently, like perhaps NLP in your description or whatever. There's all kinds of things that can really distinguish you. The other thing, aside from education, there was another point that you mentioned. What was that one?
So kind of education early on to gain the skill, and once you've gained the skill, monetizing your experience that you've gained.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for the refresher. So yeah, I think everybody completely, you hit the nail on the head. So many people out there doing what you presently do, working for somebody else. You get to a point where you could literally do that on your own and control your time and your schedule and your customers. You can become your own business owner. Mm-hmm. It's scary, but if you build a plan, if you do some free work into some friends and family work, into some discounted work, into whatever, you get reviews, you get testimonials. You can literally build your own business and design your own life based on something you love. So thank you for bringing those 2 points up there.
Absolutely. Those are great points. And I agree with everything. I will make the other argument for the school part is that's what we need to also debate a bunch at the early stages is this ROI positive? If I'm going to take on debt, if I'm going to pay $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 for an education, is that going to return me something more than I put in? Our natural answer is yes, because of programming. Well, of course, a college degree, you'll make more than the person that has a high school degree. Yes, but is the 200,000 really going to bring you back 800,000? And if so, how long is it going to take to 4x your money or 3x your money? How long? Because to your point, I work with people that have the PhD behind their name, that have the masters, that don't get a return.
Yep.
So that becomes, if we're going to look at things like investments, we really have to weigh that out and say, well, what is the ROI for what I'm going to do? And that is, like I said, I agree. You can add school into that, but that still becomes the conversation, just like you would have with any other business or equities that you're about to drop a 5 or 6 figure load on, right? Like, you'll have the same thought process if that was a business that you had to evaluate for 100 grand versus the education, the piece of paper for the 100 grand. People will take the education quick because it's normal, because it's natural, but you should be doing the same type of analysis. It's safe, right? You should be doing the same type of analysis, in my opinion, right? Because that's an investment. So, did you have something?
Talking about the ROI on the education. Oh, Kobi, you have something?
No. Go ahead, bro.
Thanks. Talking about the ROI when it comes to education, I think a lot of people like let's take a doctor, for example, or let's take my buddy who went into engineering at a really, really nice private school and is not able to do anything with his money right now because he's got so much debt. So even though you may get into a great profession that lasts you the rest of your lifetime, and it's that super conservative long play where you're doing what you got to do, you're retiring. If you're so in debt that you can't use your money to make some of these mid-term investments, then you're missing out. Oh, okay. Then you're missing out on all different types of mid-term investment opportunities while you're younger. And we know that investment opportunities grow over time. So if you're deferring that opportunity until later in life when your student debt is finally paid off, you're really setting yourself up for a hard time.
That's right. And that becomes more of the conversation that I think just needs to be had, right? It just needs to be had up front because it's all the same stuff, right? It's all money, just where you're choosing to put it and what you choose to value. That's it. So I'm glad that we can have this conversation and kind of build on that a bit more. But again, go ahead, Kobi, if you got something.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, I want to make. I think we can add quite a bit on the others, but I want to make sure we hit the other 3 here because we got lending, real estate, and commodities.
That's right. So after equities, next side of asset class that you can actually invest in is the lending side, becoming your own lender. Being right, you don't have to always borrow money. You can actually loan money out and lend money if you have enough. Again, we're not talking $300, $1,000, $4,000. Like, that's not the game you want to play. You're talking hefty 5-figure investment, 6-figure investment. If you have $100,000 that is your midterm because you have short and long taken care of, and you loan that money out, you will receive interest on your money. You'll receive interest on your money. It's a form of passive income. If you loan your money out to people and then they give it back to you in 4% interest or 5% interest, and then you get back the full principal, you just made your money work for you, right? I was telling you guys that there's a company called Lending Club, lendingclub.com. That's literally what they do for consumer debt. You are one of these people listening that's got $30,000 that you just want to do something with. Check out Lending Club. Check it out. Basically, all you're doing is investing in consumer debt. Somebody's got credit card debt. Somebody's got a car loan, right? Somebody's got some actual consumer debt. You're funding that debt, and they are paying you an interest on a monthly or annual basis, and then eventually you get your principal back. If you have the funds, that is a way to continue to grow it. And again, Some of that is a little bit slower. It's not as fast as people think. But like I said, it's a 3 to 8 year investment. So that becomes an option. I always want people to remember, you don't always have to borrow. You can lend. You can lend, but you have to be in the financial position to be able to lend. Back to our conversation. This is not the 101 conversation, guys. We're now up to the 201 or the 202 or the 303 conversation. Like, that's what this is. You have to have some things before you can do this type of stuff. So
add a little bit to that.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So, I actually have some experience with Lending Club. Part of their investor team there, talking to a lot of folks on a day-to-day basis. So I kind of got, it was really cool because I got a very nice feel as to what's going on with individuals that are beginning to think about their money, have been thinking of their money, and, for a long time, and now just kind of curious. So I'll say this: I will emphasize that it's not the 101 play. Okay, individuals that I saw, and this is, I don't represent the company in any way, shape, or form. I hope I'm not breaching anything, so please don't sue me or nothing. I ain't got nothing for you, dog. I ain't got nothing.
Nothing. Nothing.
Yeah. Control everything.
That's right.
So I'll say, the people I saw do really well were the QPs, the qualified purchasers, right? Not the normal folks bringing in $1,000. In fact, don't do that. It's not advice. I would not do that personally. You get up to 10. All right. Okay. You get up to 20, but truly you get up to like 50, 100,000. Now we're doing something. And if you're a QP, honestly, qualified purchaser, which you can, or what's the other term for it? Qualified buyer. So
you're not talking like accredited investor, though.
Accredited, qualified. I think those might be two slightly different requirements, but look it up and see for yourself, because you do get access to better crops, if you will. You do get access to better crops, so it's worthwhile for you to really do some good digging. But there's good stuff there. I mean, especially if you're in stocks, for example, right? You take and you experience losses, you got a good tax person that can go ahead and advise you on how to go ahead and cross-reference those or cancel out those with any other type of losses. I think you do pretty good. But if you are, just building your 101, I would say definitely focus on that, because this is a conversation for 201s.
That's right.
202s. Apologize. 202s.
202s.
Please forgive me.
That's right. And that's again why there's levels to this. But think about it. It takes discipline to get to a place where you got $100,000 liquid outside of short and long-term things to be able to invest.
Absolutely.
And that's what people don't have the patience. You still need patience to build wealth, to keep getting to that next level. Just keep socking it away. That's why making it and keeping your expenses low and doing all the right things are just incredibly important over the long haul, because then it puts you in position to do these types of investments, right? Most people aren't in the position to do this, partly because they don't make enough money, partly because they spend it, right? Like, there's a bunch of different combinations as to why, but that's the game. That's the game.
So, and that discipline along the way is part of the ROI, right? That exercising of the muscle, right? That get you to that QP position, or the position where you can say, all right, I've got 10K. It's not going to hurt me if I lose it, but I'm not trying to be reckless with it. And I'm going to put it in a position where it can get me a cool, 5 to 8%,
right.
So yeah, I think this is really good stuff for somebody who's really thinking about, shoot, I have a good job, good income. I've made some of the basic moves. Now, how do I get to the next level? Well, shoot, you can get your expenses down, cut down an extra $300, $400, right?
Expenses.
How long is it going to take you? Pardon?
Expenses over what period of time? If you're cutting down to $300-$400, what time? You're talking about per week?
I'm saying cut down your expenses per month as much as possible, so you can keep stacking, like Chris is talking about. So you get a little starter money, a little capital money, so you don't have to borrow from Big Brother $10,000. But that's another move too that we're not talking about quite yet is, there's the stacking, but there's also, we haven't talked about this yet, and I'm sure we will. Maybe it might be a part 2, guys. It might be a part 2, but there's also I don't know when it's going to get 50, when I'm going to get 50 racks, but I got 10, and I know 4 other people I trust that are like-minded, that are serious, that are engaged, that are diligent, that are disciplined, that are along the move. We got 5,000, Can we get a little slice of the pie with that? And then you take that, take 50. Can we turn 50 to 80?
If it has enough, juice, if it has enough return on investment,
specialized knowledge,
pooling the money together, getting some specialized knowledge is absolutely one of the great ways to get into the investing game, especially on the real estate side, which is the next asset class we're going to talk about. Right? It's a great way to be able to do that. But yeah, we're saying some of the good stuff. Again, this is just this is not the 101 conversation, guys. This is the 202. There's potentially even 303 conversation as we continue to go up this ladder to understand these asset classes. And stacking that money, setting it aside. But then the other side is maybe you could pool it all together and make sure your return on investment's good. Specifically, this happens in the real estate side. So let's touch on that asset class, right? Let's touch on the real estate asset class. And real estate is just ownership of a physical space. People love real estate as an asset class, and it is a great one. It has tons of tax benefits, lots of good stuff that happens in the real estate side. But again, specialized knowledge. There's so many ways in real estate to make money, or potentially lose it, right? But make money, but you have to learn it. There's the wholesaling side. There's fix and flipping. There's commercial properties, single family residence, multifamily. There's purchasing land, which we seem to all be fans of, right? There's all types of ways to make money in each of these asset classes. You just need the knowledge. That's what I was going to say. I had this thought pop in. While you are saving money, even if it feels like it's taking long to stack it, you should be doubling down on your education of the class that you want to invest in. That's what happens simultaneously. People often think once I have the money, I'll make the right investment. It's not the way it works. If you did come into money, normally your first 2 or 3 investments are just stupid. They just don't make any money. You don't have the knowledge, right? You invested just in the jockey or just in the horse, like I gave that example, right? When you're investing, you have to invest in both the jockey and the horse. I heard Gary Vee say this, and it just makes perfect sense, right? The horse is the actual business in the equity side. It's the actual business, right? So if you believe in the business, will you just invest in that? Well, that's great. But if the person driving the business, the jockey, the person running it, isn't capable of running it, that business will fail. It won't be a good investment. Right? You might think it's a great idea. The person behind the helm, not great. The other side, we also see when we have close friends, close family, they come to us because we care about them, right? They know that we have some money. We invest in the jockey. We invest in them. I believe in my cousin. I believe in my uncle. I believe in my brother, right? I'm going to give you the money, but their idea is garbage, right? That's not going to be a successful business. And so those are typically bad investments that we make when we just come into money without specialized knowledge. So when we go down this path of all these midterm and these asset classes, it's about specialized knowledge. In the real estate side, exactly the same thing. It's not just simple to, I'm just going to buy the house and then I'm just going to rent it out and it's just going to be rented for my whole life. Yeah, no. Rents go up, right? Liability. Inevitably, everyone that's a real estate investor gets sued at some point in time. Are you prepared for that? Right? These are the things that actually people don't pay attention to that take specialized. Why? Because people try to, claim that you had mold in your home. and it caused them to be sick. So now they got to sue you because 7 years later they were sick and they found, you know, it was mold because somebody tries to, or somebody comes over and their child falls on your property, right? And it had nothing to do with you, but you had a crack in the sidewalk, so they want to, you know, sue you for their hospital bills and all these things. Sometimes deals fall through, and you know, you have to sue a contractor, or a contractor sues you because they left the job or whatever, right? Like attorneys play a huge role in real estate investing.
Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that. It makes a lot of sense because having come from the construction background, you're always thinking about safety and all different types of stuff. I had a really bad deck and balcony that I purchased as a part of this condo. And the first thing I was highlighting is like, yo, and I really encourage you guys to look for this stuff. Think about this stuff. The mold example was fantastic as well. There were so many, like the railings would just come off. And I'm like, if someone ever comes to live here as a tenant in my place and you go out there, who are you going to come after?
The owner.
Yeah. And so, man, we went into like a 6-month battle with the condo association, talking about how it wasn't acceptable because that, you know, the outside, if you guys are familiar with, you know, our audience, if y'all are familiar with it, condo associations take care of the exterior in many cases. That was an exterior element. I had to fight really, really hard to make sure that I didn't lose sleep at night thinking a tenant could go over the railing. Holy shit. So there's also ethics tied to it. So yeah, these are definitely things to think about. That specialized knowledge, man. Excellent example.
It's everything. It's everything.
Yep.
Go ahead,
Kobi. Yeah. I think it's a great one. And I think when you bring your specialized knowledge to real estate, that's where you can really make good money. Because I think a lot of folks do think it's kind of plug and play, but there's a wide world of real estate, and some of the things I heard recently that, you know, I didn't quite consider myself is heard of a interview with a gentleman that was combining his knowledge of events and events planning and throwing events and things of that nature with real estate. So
you were watching Neo, huh? Neo on Earn Your Leisure. Is that who you're watching?
Who that? Was it? That sounds about right. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
I don't quite remember the name, but that sounds about right. But he was doing the event space.
Yeah, he's out of Philly. He does the event space stuff. He was just on Earn Your Leisure. Yeah.
Okay, got it. I thought that was really interesting, man, because I hadn't really looked at real estate quite like that, where you are actually getting a unique piece of property, right? So not your typical residential place, not your typical condo, single family, multifamily, etc. But you're getting a unique place, right? I think he mentioned even like churches, right? Which is, you know, as a realtor, you look at, I don't know how to price a church, right? That's as a realtor gets a church as a client, you know, that's something like, what? I don't know what to do with that. No, right? But to bring that knowledge, right, of knowledge of how to generate attention, knowledge of how to organize and take, like, you might have knowledge of a particular type of property because you've seen it, or a particular area, or you might have knowledge of how to navigate particular sections of the financial process, right? Maybe you really know banks and how to get the money, or you might have knowledge of how to organize systems and search data on the internet in such a way that you can search through city records and look and cross-reference data in such a way that you can highlight the most opportunistic areas or buildings or things of that nature. All of that stuff really goes into play because you may not know real estate, but maybe you know data analytics, or you know data, or you know how to do that. You can apply that, all right? Or maybe you're in construction. You have that specialized knowledge. I hear a lot of these real estate guys say, "Oh, you know, anybody can do it." True, all true, I guess. But at the end of the day, the people that I see being like really successful had some sort of leg up, right? They had something, right? whether they were an attorney, that's specialized knowledge, right? You have specialized knowledge of how things work, of processes, of relationships, right? Maybe you have relationships in place. So I think it's important to look, even as you look at these asset classes, to look at what do you individually also bring to the table that could be your secret sauce.
That's huge. That's huge.
Secret sauce.
That's because that's it. And that's honestly, that's what we keep getting sold. This is where a lot of people fall victim to being sold the next program, the next, thing. Because I always tell people there's millions of ways to make money. Like there's so many ways to make money and build wealth. The problem is, do you stick in one area long enough to get specialized knowledge? The people that sell you the courses, it's because hopefully they've been doing that thing for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, know the ins and outs, done it, right? Been through it. So then they can teach you, but your job is to get the same specialized knowledge. They might be giving you a blueprint. They might be telling you a bit more, but your job is to stay in that lane. And I often see this, and for everyone listening, like understand this is one of the biggest mistakes is if you want to build wealth, you've got to stick somewhere for a long period of time, 5 years plus. You've got to get knowledge there, mess up, come back, right? It doesn't happen quickly. You've got to think of, again, you're a doctor. How long do you go to school to get that specialized knowledge of whatever it is that you're specializing in? You might go to school for 10 years, 12 years. It might take some time. We think that we can build wealth overnight. We think, as soon as I learn this one skill, as soon as I get this one thing, as soon as I invest in this one thing, I'm good. But it's not that. It's specialized knowledge over and over again. So like I said, we have to cut on our brains for this education when we want to start building wealth. And we just got to stay in that lane because inevitably it gets hard in every lane you go down, whether we're talking real estate, whether we're talking equities, whether, right, you're lending money to people that don't pay back, whether you're lending money to people that default on their loans, right? There's a downside to every investment. Investing is risky. That's why every investment person will tell you, investing is risky, right? Invest at your own risk because it's all risky. It's just, do you have specialized knowledge and will you keep going down that path?
To mitigate that risk. Yeah, I think that's the key because, I've heard so-called, super experts in the stock market that'll tell you, if you don't know what you're doing, you will get slaughtered. Don't do it. Right. So I guess you got to kind of listen when enough people who have done what you are trying to do are saying what they're saying. So, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, man. And if we're down to our last few minutes here, I think we should really highlight maybe one big thing to take away, all right, from this here talk, because I think we don't want to leave folks with such high levels of how much of gold here and not, they don't know what to do with it. They don't know what to do with it. So let's go from there.
Yeah.
Do we want to just have a quick blurb about commodities real quick and then go into that?
Yeah, I'll make it real quick because it is super simple. Because again, back to the basics, specialized knowledge. Commodities is goods, right? It's goods. Now, some of it can come in the gold, silver, copper side, right? Those are goods, but it can also come in commodities like oil, natural gas. Everything actually has a market. There's a market for chicken. Corn. There's a market for corn. There's a market for chicken. There's a market for beef. There's a cattle, right? There's
avocado.
There's a market for everything. The question
avocado cartel.
Yeah. Do you have a specialized knowledge in it? Do you know people that run avocado farms, right? Do you have a connection there? Do you know that the crops were bad for this next upcoming season, so the price is going to jack up? Do you have a knowledge about it in order to be able to invest in it? Because there's money to be made in all of those. But that's what happens in the commodity side. Again, same thing, specialized knowledge. How close are you to oranges? Did you know that half of the orange fields, something actually just happened in the commodity space 3 weeks ago with the cattle, with meat, what is it? Man, I'm gonna butcher this. There's probably an article out there you can read. but something happened with the meat supply at the one of the largest meat packing companies or something like that. It like shut down like 30% of the meat supply in this country, and this just happened like 3 weeks ago. It's not very long, and it sent like a big like wave in the industry, in that commodity industry around the world, right? Because
cyber attack or some sort of breakdown.
It might have been cyber attack. It was something. I remember reading it briefly, but again,
keywords. I can look it up real quick.
Just look up. I think it had something to do with beef or beef packing plants or beef shutdown, something like that. Maybe we can find something.
Meat. UC Davis ED. Meat packing plants increase COVID cases in USA. I'm done.
I'm done. That's all we needed. We're done.
That's let's go. We're done.
But either way,
it was a cyber attack.
It was a cyber attack. Yeah. So that was
not the only one, by the way. Just saying.
Won't be the last one.
Not at all. Isn't that the same thing happening with the gas lines?
Again, though,
that's within 2 or 3 months. That's 2.25.
There's money on that side, guys. We might not play there. You might not have a specialized knowledge of it, but there's a ton of people that do have specialized knowledge in these other areas, right?
Absolutely. And I think that might be the key for the day is take care of your 101. Everybody can do that regardless of your income, regardless of what you're doing. Everybody can really take care of what's going out, what's coming in. And then key is figure out where do you have a competitive advantage where you can go ahead and midterm make some investments that'll allow you to make the jumps you want to make.
That's right.
What do you guys think?
Or where do you want to have a competitive advantage? Because we can learn anything. We go to school for 15 years of our life, right? Like you can pick up anything. The information's all out there. Investing back in yourself is a great investment. So where do you want to be?
I'd say really also, kind of helpful to align with things that either come easily to you or you can maintain a level of attention to, right? So I do see a lot of people that are picking up, real estate, for example, because it is like the hot thing to do. Or people who pick up stocks and they don't even know them. They don't put in the time, they learn, they don't do it. They just think like, oh, this is where I should be. So there is some, I think if you really enjoy, I have a friend who really enjoys reading comic books. I'm like, bro, like, look around that. Like it could be the most tangentially related thing, right? Maybe you do like
I'll give your buddy an idea from that, because that's great. If you're really an avid comic book reader, you have some comic books that possibly people haven't heard of. If you can get around writers and you can then find a way to purchase that comic book. This is how Marvel, right? Like people purchase the stories of pre-existing comic books that people don't know anything about. If you can purchase the rights to that comic book for $6,000, for $15,000, and then you turn it over to a writer because you have friends that write or you write, then you sell that script to Marvel or to some studio. You just came up on a few $100,000 or $1 million. There's tons of ways to make money. Follow that. Could be like, if comic books is your thing, you can find it. You probably have some specialized knowledge. I wouldn't know shit about comic books, right? Like, but you might know that was a great story and it had this blah, blah, blah. And if you can find the person that wrote it and you pay them 10 grand to get the licensing rights or get the rights to the comic, and literally that's how stories get transferred and then turn into huge Disney productions that make a few $100 million because somebody happened to read a comic from some back shelf that was dusted off from 1997. Like business.
It's funny you guys mentioned comic books because I actually took somebody's word that was working there. There's like, dude, this one, don't open this one. I was like, you know what? I like you, man. I'm not going to open this one. So we'll see what happens.
That's true. And that's on like we didn't even get a chance to talk into like the alternative investments that are popping up right now. The comic books, the card, the sports cards, the Pokemon cards, NFTs in the digital space, right? These are all alternative investments that can still get you those same returns in the midterm space. You just need specialized knowledge on it. That's the theme, guys. I think that's the point that we can wrap up with, because I think we drilled that one home. I appreciate having the conversation. Thank you for everybody that listened and tuned in. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, right? We're here to add value. Tonight we had a wealth conversation, what to do to go from the 101 to the 201 or 202 to the 303 level. And all of it really comes down to some specialized knowledge, like Kobi said, maybe something that intuitively is good for you. Intuitively, you already do. You already do those things. How do you make money around it? Stack, save your money, set it aside. Hefty 5-figure, 6-figure investments. No more $1,000, $2,000 here. That's not how you get to the next level, right? But you got to do all the right things first in order to get to that next place where you can make a 40 grand investment in something and actually have it pay some return for you. So we're here to help you get to the good life, guys. It was another great show. I appreciate you, gentlemen. I appreciate everyone watching and listening. Tune in next Wednesday. Gonna do it all again for another episode of The Good Life, guys. Signing off. Take care.